Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 and the great guests you're going to hear from, their struggles, how they overcame their struggles, their triumphs. Through personal and business life, I think they're tied together, and we're going to share great stories about that. This show isn't just about me. It takes a lot of good people working with me. Among them is my partner, H7 Network, and Clay Hicks. Building relationships, building community is the mission of H7 Network. They want to create a network of champions where everybody wins. Find out more at h7network.com. And we hope to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through our show. Enjoy the show. We'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome, everyone, to another awesome episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And this is going to be a fun one for me because my guest has something I've been playing, and I've been playing this industry for, my wife's going to hear this, but that's okay, for 10 years. And we connected. We've known each other for a long time, but I love fantasy sports, and that's what we're going to delve into. Hey, Daryl, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Steve.
Well, it's a pleasure, and let's dive into it. Why did you jump in this fantasy sports industry?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about jumping in, but back in the 90s, the late 90s, I was with a group of guys, and we were playing, called it rotisserie football, but I guess it would be referred to as fantasy football now. And we would keep score by grabbing the USA Today on Monday. And we had like a check and balances, right? You'd look at the box scores in the USA Today, and then the Monday night game obviously would kind of be the tiebreaker. And so I became fascinated. It was fun, kind of a thing to do with a group of friends. And then DraftKings and FanDuel emerged years later, and I was obviously intrigued by that. I got involved. I played a little bit of baseball. I think the second contest I ever entered was a $3 contest, and I got second place, totally out of luck, and won like $3,000. And you talk about being hooked. So at the time, I thought the guys that are probably doing really well are, math guys figuring out things that I was just playing it because of, I like my Giants, San Francisco Giants. I was named after one. And they, I don't know if the viewers remember, but both DraftKings and FanDuel ran into some legal restrictions. They were having to prove that they were a game of skill, not gambling, and that lasted for quite a while. And I didn't know if they were going to make it, so I backed off a little bit and paid attention to some other projects I was doing. But they survived. They were going to merge at one time. They didn't, but it was just fun. So I like to, I think anybody that plays fantasy as a hobby likes to root for their team, right, or their players. But what fantasy sports has done, and why you see partnerships with like the NBA and NFL and MLB with the DraftKings and the FanDuels and now the Prize Picks and the underdogs of the world, is it creates interest in games you probably wouldn't have any interest in, right?
Yeah.
You catch yourself watching like maybe two teams that aren't really anywhere close to making the playoffs, but you've got players that are performing well. So that was just fascinating to me, and that's what brought me here.
And so let's lead to fantasy sports logic. Let's get into it. You've developed it with the scientists you mentioned before the show. What's your goal with fantasy sports logic?
I'd like to be disruptive, and I know that word is kind of thrown out all over the place, but disruptive in a way that's positive. Like what I saw out there as I was looking at different providers of information was, to me, I didn't think it was affordable for the masses. Like the industries, there's all sorts of statistics, but they say fantasy sports, $25-30 billion industry right now, North America, US and Canada, 60 million plus players. I think a majority of them are like me, they're playing it for fun and a way to maybe get more involved in sports than they currently are. But I have relationships with television. I don't know if I've shared that with you, but I've got some interest in a global streaming network called Virus Sports. I've got a relationship with Las Vegas Television Network, and I had the opportunity to become an associate producer, not because of my talents, but because of my connections. And I thought, why don't I create a fantasy sports show that's a little different than what you see out there, and maybe leverage that and some of the technology that's out there. And I won't mention the names, but I approached a couple of them and I said, hey, I could bring you a lot of attention. Maybe we do some sort of a revenue share, and I won't charge anything. I'll just bring you out and talk about you on the TV show, of which I've got a lot of distribution into the millions with my partners. And the two that I thought would be most interested both said no, thank you, and good luck, right? And I was like, really? I said, maybe I was presenting it wrong, right? So I said, well, what's that mean? Instead of me trying to bring a lot of attention to somebody else and letting them keep a bulk of the revenue, maybe that meant I should explore creating my own thing. And that gave me the opportunity to do it the way I think people would like to see it. So I want to try to explore white label optimizers, right? And I was Googling and using different things, and all of a sudden something appeared to me, and I did some due diligence and ended up meeting a person and had several conversations. But the gentleman had been a season-long fantasy sports enthusiast, right? But he was a super math educated person, graduated from an MIT-like school out east, and he was on the patent for the first GPS chip ever invented. And his father and grandfather just very almost savant, way beyond. Like, math was not my favorite subject in high school. I barely made it because I was interested in other things. But this gentleman, Leonard's his name, and I'm going to shoot a video with him tomorrow. He had created a concept and he patented it in 2013, and it's patented through 2034. It's all about probability distribution. It's all about algorithms in season long. And he's used it personally to become one of the top players in season long fantasy for years. It was the #1 downloaded app with CBS Sports App Central, 2012, 13, 14. A very popular product, and CBS pivoted away from that. It's got a couple of pieces of technology. One's called the Machine, the other one's a Taguchi Brain. So when I found him, I said, I don't play season long anymore. I'm really a DFS guy, and would you be interested in working with me? I'll show you what I think is a way I see a lot of people winning in DFS, and that's contrarian, meaning playing the lesser popular but higher upside, lower owned. And almost every winning lineup, Steve, that I examined over years and kept focusing more, and I thought, this can't be a coincidence. It always seemed to have at least one, if not multiple, in the lineups, a player, an NBA player, an NFL player, an MLB player that hardly anyone chose, but that player scored a lot of points. So I started to interject my contrarian theories with his know-how, and he got excited. He's like, this is something, I really could embrace, even though he wasn't a DFS player. And it was born. And in the beginning, I just started to look. I researched, okay, who can I find that provides competent player projection data, right? Because you got to have data feeds, and we're in an age of data to where it gets better and better with machine learning and algorithms. And so I started out getting one feed, and then I said, well, why do I only want one feed when I could give people more than one feed and more value, right? And I added another feed and another feed and another feed. I call it the Magnificent Seven. We've stopped at 7 because Leonard is like, that's a lot of feeds. So, and I'm talking to these data providers, and they're like, they're negotiating because you got to pay for it. It's not free, right? And they're like, and I'm like, well, I'm not just, I'm going to add you and I'm going to add you. And it's not a secret. I've RotoWire, which is they've been around for years, one of the most trusted in the sport. That's a live data feed. Sport Radar, Sports Data IO, the Baker engine, which simulates up to 10,000 times of a game event. That's a feed. FTN, they simulate 40,000 possible outcomes of a game. That's one of my feeds. Baseball, Park Pal or Ballpark Pal, he's a feed. He simulates 3,000 times. So my goal was to offer as much value for an affordable price. So I looked at everybody else out there, and I'm not going to name who they are. People can search, but I thought $29.97 a month to give people access to not one product, but 7 live feeds and then a blend of the live feeds. And in a contrarian mode, on or off, I thought that's just going to like blow people away as long as they can understand it, right? Dumbing it down to zero.
That's it. Yeah.
So the product was born. As you're doing this podcast, it literally has become available today, and it's in beta. And what I want people to understand, beta means it's in the beginnings of what I believe will be something that's living, growing, and it's software, and it'll get better and better and better and better. So outside of the $29.97, there's an opportunity, lifetime, one time, all sports as I add them. And right now I have Major League Baseball with 7 feeds and 1 NBA feed for the rest of the playoff. But as I add PGA golf and NBA next season and NFL, never any upcharges. So lifetime, one time, all sports, all upgrades while in beta promotion. And customers going to tell me, I mean, I can sit here and say blah, 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 I think, but I think the value, and you started to see it, you're one of the first ones, but when I just started to put it together, and you're like, can you give me some tips? And you can share with your viewers, right? What happened to you when I was crunching the data?
When you told me you were doing this, and I've used other optimizers, it took me weeks to win. And in the second day, I made $20. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I've learned more. And I love that you're saying, you fantasy people out there, is you're going to learn as you grow. And what I'm learning today is much different when we first started, and it's going to be different in 6 months. And the $297 for the lifetime, if you don't jump on that now, and there'll be a link in the chat, if you can't make $297 in a year or in 3 years, then you're just not playing enough. And that's what you've done, Daryl. You've really served these customers that are doing DFS.
Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah, and I'm all about community. I know you and I have known each other for years, networks, and the more people you know, the more you grow, and your net worth is directly related to the size of your network. And so I want to be a little different, and maybe it's not, but I want to be really interactive. I want to do live calls. I want to have feedback. I'm talking to different interactive technologies, whether it's SMS or forums. The ultimate goal, and you can read it on the blog, if you go to fantasysportslogic.com, and the blog, there's a lot of updates over the past months as this progressed. But eventually a Fantasy Sports Logic bus that meets fans at venues of the games that are, a part of our community, that can party with us on the bus or meet us or whatever, right, at the particular venues, and just get super connected, right? I mean, I love people, and I love what this is about, and I want people to be able to, hey, if they think it's not doing so well, tell me, right? And let me get the feedback. So there'll be live calls at least once a week, probably multiple times as we grow. And That's how I built a similar network back in the early 2000s. You were asking about this before, but I had people, it was a $69 a month system back then, kind of a CRM before Facebook, before Salesforce got popular, and it gave them access to a software, be now referred to as a software as a service. And it had follow-ups and it had leads. I sold lead packages and we had millions of leads running through it. But I was kind of crazy, but I would be able to look into the back of the systems and I would see people had paid for months and they never logged into the software, right? And I'd call them because I wanted to know. I was like, hey, you're not using it. And some of them would say, oh yeah, I forgot, I want to cancel, right? And I was like, oh, that was good. But some of them would say, what was surprising, they go, I'm not here for the software. I'm here because you make me feel like my questions are important. I'm a part of a community. And that's always stuck with me. I think there's a huge, obviously 60 million players. I want to create community. I want to create camaraderie. You know, there's some, I don't know if you've seen it, there's some technology I've partnered with, these watch parties, right? Where you can together as a group watch a game that's streamed live on the software. And a lot of fun things that are beyond just, hey, here's some data, go figure out the data, enter some contest and hope you win. It's about creating, you know, fantasy sports logic fanatics.
Right? Yeah, no, and this is a game changer because the optimizers, the three that I used in the last 2 or 3 years, it was just data, and that's okay. I know we talked about this. That's okay. That's what they do, but you're taking it to the next step. It's less expensive, but now me and Joe Smith can talk and go, Joel Embiid tonight. It's May 4th, 3rd. We're talking. And it's the playoffs. Is he going to play? Is he not? We were actually doing that. That's where it becomes fun. We all become general managers of our own team, right? With the DFS, that's what you're building.
Well, and that's the whole concept, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people sometimes forget, but it's like you're an owner when you have $50,000 of salary, right? For DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo, and you got to figure out, like an owner, right?
Yeah.
I want to put the best team in that performs, and that's what it's all about. I mean, and people can share, and you know, you and I talked about it before the call. I mean, if I gave out what I believe to be the optimal lineup up and down, and everybody loved it, and I had 10,000 or 100,000 or however many subscribers. If we did really good, everybody tie, right? Or everybody lose.
Yeah.
They'd either tie for first or they tie for last. And so what we try to do, and you saw it, I mean, the experience of 7 different live blends and those particular data feeds plus a blend, it gives people the opportunity to, again, it's not taking it out of your hand. You're not just pressing a button and go, it's allowing you to make decisions and helping people understand why tonight, pitchers, right? In baseball, you can let the optimizer go and maybe it's going to hit on some pitchers, or you can prompt it to lock in. We talked about Ohtani, you know, people are going to watch us and Ohtani's either going to rock tonight or he's whatever. But he's been performing well. And if he does again and scores 30 or 40 fantasy points and you didn't play him, it might be hard to catch up because some of the other pitchers didn't do that. So those are the sort of things that we can talk about as a group. And you're going to have Ohtani lovers and you're going to have Ohtani people that don't.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about creating interaction and conversation.
What you've also done too is you don't have to win every day. If you play 7 days a week, you win 2 or 3 days out of the week, you're probably going to be profitable, right, Daryl?
Yeah, I mean, we got a disclaimer, you know, because of, you know, we believe we are providing something that's unique and may give players an edge. You can see on the winner's wall, I've used it. My experience has been, I won first place, $1 entry, 47,600 entries were there. I played $7 and one of the entries was first place, right? It won $2,000. That doesn't mean you'll do the same, but you may go out there and win with $7 more than 2000. I won 2007 that day. So what the goal is to be affordable enough that it isn't harming anyone. And if I can give enough, or we, the company, can give enough information that somebody at the end of the month, they feel like they got more value than the $29.97, or at the end of, like you said, a year or 2 or 3 years, they got more value than the $299.97, then they're going to stay, right? And they're going to tell others about it. And it's not going to be something where they got to scrape money at the end of the month out of what, hopefully they would have done other things with, like eat.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
right.
Eating's kind of important. You're right, Daryl. Well, it's like the stock market, right? And trading, people put 10,000 in, and by 6 months it's all gone because they got to learn. You've built something where it's so gradual, but the fun aspect with the community is just a complete game changer with this. Complete. My 10 years at DFS is, like I've told you, I've never seen anything like this. So the audience wants to reach out to you. How can they get a hold of you, Daryl?
The website, subscribe to the blog. It's fantasysportslogic.com. There's a blog that I post almost daily, sometimes multiple times daily. My email is right there.
Good.
Starting tonight, and going forward, I'm going to be interactive with calls, like I said, and I'm not hard to find. I'm on, you and I are on LinkedIn, and I have Twitter. I'm probably I talked about this today. I doubled my amount of followers on Twitter. I went from 2 to 4 today, Steve. So I'm not a Twitter guy. I've been Facebook and LinkedIn since their inceptions, right? I think I joined both of them when they first started. Before that, I was with Tom at MySpace, right? But
right.
Twitter, I've never been. I did have another Twitter thing that I paid some guy back in the day, and he built up like 10,000 followers for me. But I didn't know any of them. I was like, "What's this for?"
Just a number.
But they can find FS Logic on Twitter as well, and I will be. Like I say, I doubled my following today. So.
Well, congratulations! You got 2 extra followers. That's a winner.
But that was because one of the people I was talking to said, "I'm going to
follow you."
I said, I only have 2 followers. She goes, "I can double that by the end of the day." Her and one of her company partners.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
next week I'll have 8.
Yeah, exactly. You're really rolling. You're an influencer now, Daryl. You're a Twitter influencer.
Social media guru. Can I say I'm a guru now? Yeah,
go for it. Publicly, you're a guru. FSL is part of it, but you're a guru in Twitter. Well, we're running out of time here, and I'm going to have you back because I want updates. In a couple of months, I want you coming back. And I thank you so much for being on. I've learned so much today. I've learned a lot before, but I've learned more. And if we can bring fun to a business like you're doing, it's going to be a game changer for everybody. So I appreciate you doing that. Reach out to me or reach out to Daryl. We'll help you out with FSL, Fantasy Sports Logic. And one last thing, can I ask a favor of you?
Yeah, sure.
Can you leave my audience with you've done a lot of things in your life. I've known you almost over 10 years. What piece of advice could you give my audience for their journey?
In life in general?
Yeah, or business or something you learned.
It's all about, I've had probably more than a couple of amazing mentors, and, it's all about staying positive, and, it's here. A lot of what people create is what you believe, and try to, we went through some crazy times. I think we continue to go through, right? And you can just be flooded with all sorts of noise. So what I've been able to do that has assisted me is you just block it out and try to focus on what you're grateful for. And I know you're into that. It's all about thinking, at times when, like in business in general, like I am all excited and you're all excited, but are more than just a couple of us going to be excited, right? And you just start thinking about all the fun and positive things that can happen. So I say it's all about attitude, and be aware of what you think, because what you think you attract, and just stay positive and try to focus on whether it's your kids or got a beautiful life partner and a 2-year-old golden doodle, and two beautiful children, and I just shift to that and have an attitude of gratitude, and it's helped me for many years.